Welcome to Macau! We got a fantastic location this time round for our video. What a view we got of the Grand Gibson in our hotel here, because we massively underestimated Macau. A lot of the time I feel like people, including myself, is like Macau is just another location to tick off the list. You go Hong Kong because that's maybe the more famous location, especially for traveling around, and Macau is so close to it. It's kind of like, yeah, we can do Macau. We can spend like 3-4 days in Hong Kong and we can do 1 day in Macau. Kind of like tick it off the bucket list. You've done Hong Kong and now you've done Macau. And also in terms of making a video, done a Hong Kong video, then comes the Macau video. But we massively underestimated Macau as just like a small little place that's mostly just for casinos and gambling. There's a lot of things here to check out. You can definitely chill and relax here with some fantastic food and a lot of things to see and do. And quite often, it often feels like Macau is kind of like an Instagram set. And we really wish that we had booked an extra day here. So starting off, probably the most famous attraction here, other than the casinos, is the ruins of St. Paul. It's just the front of it, or at least whatever part of it this is a huge tourist attraction. Very crowded. The way it's preserved is very cool. I don't know a lot about the history. However, there is a museum attached to it if you wish to investigate it further and learn more about the history, about the cathedral, about the ruins. Once we were done with St. Paul's, we could then go over to the fortress, the old fortress that was there. Free to enter and walk around the historic site. The cannons look very new. These don't look like very old cannons, especially the ones we were walking past. There may be more older cannons, as there is also a museum attached to the fortress. We didn't go in the fortress, we just wanted to get a feel and vibe of the location by walking around it. And also around this area, you've got some old city walls to explore from maybe 100 years ago or more. Again, just taking in the history of this place, which has a very rich and very amazing history. And not far from this location is St. Dominic's Church, and a great glimpse into what is just Macau in general. They just have beautifully painted buildings here. You often see buildings with these bright, vibrant colors. Strong yellows, bright greens, bright reds, bright purples, or bright pinks. And these buildings just look so pretty. They look so nice. They look so clean. It looks so nice to walk around in, to walk around the areas where these are, to take some Instagram photos. And definitely when you're walking around, you feel like this is a city that is respected by the people looking after it. They take a lot of care to make sure that these areas are clean. Now, this is also contrasted with some of the other buildings that aren't so well taken care of. And when you're on the fortress, you can see this very clearly, as it looks like we also can view very close to the fortress, maybe where the local people live. So it is very interesting to see the contrast between these beautiful, well-kept buildings and maybe where the buildings where the general public of Macau live. And it's always nice to see how the locals live and where the locals live, rather than just staying trapped in the tourist location. Because Macau is such a small place, you do kind of get to see this pretty easily. You don't have to go searching for it anywhere like that. It's just kind of like there. So you get to see both sides of Macau all the time, basically. Whilst we were walking around, we stopped by S. Francisco's garden. This may be a famous garden or not, I'm not too sure. But it was a very pretty garden. We've chilled here for a little bit, took some photos, and realized that, yeah, this is a really nice place. It's a great place to chill and relax after doing quite a bit of walking. Relax and chill and look at the Grand Gibson Hotel, which is one thing that I really like about Macau's city design, is that you can see this hotel, casino, pretty much anywhere on the Macau side. As you can see, we can see it out of our hotel window, and you can just walk around the city and you'll walk past the building and there it is again. And you can see this very far away. Whereas usually in most cities, these buildings kind of ended up getting overshadowed by all the other buildings in the way. But here in Macau, they've sort of designed it so you can always see the Grand Lisbon, I can't remember what I called it before, but the Grand Lisbon Hotel. So you're never lost either. If you just walk a little bit, you're bound to see the Grand Lisbon. And you'll be like, okay, that's the direction we need to go in. And then just behind the Grand Lisbon, you can also get to see Macau Tower if you want to see views from Macau from higher up. Now, we didn't really feel any need to go into any of the museums in the ruins of St. Paul's or the fortress or into Macau Tower. But if you feel any need to want to check this stuff out and learn a little bit more about the history and get some unique views from high up, then these are all options that are open to you. Going south into the southern island here in Macau. This is where I guess a lot of people will be hanging out most. It has Taipa village, which is very beautiful and very crowded. I definitely recommend going there even though it's so crowded. There's so much street food that you can check out there, and there's beautiful artwork everywhere. And they have this thing here, when I was looking at the Macau Tourism Board website, they called it Staircase Beautification. So they tried to make all these small areas, just a simple staircase, look more beautiful than they actually are, because they seem to really take care into making these areas as pleasant for visitors as possible. So I really appreciate the art that has gone into designing these areas around Macau. And this is again why it feels like Macau is kind of an Instagram set. So right next to Taipei Village, we visited a small temple to make some prayer and just visit and see the insides, as I find places of faith to be very interesting places to visit and to check out the insides from architectural viewpoint and just a general interest. Now, this isn't the most famous temple here in Macau. There's so many temples you can visit, and there are more famous ones you can visit. We visited this one because it just happened to be close by, but you could go to a more famous one. And then there's the Strip. I've not been to Vegas. People call it the Vegas of Asia. I don't know, I've never been to Las Vegas. But the Strip is definitely one of the key things here in Macau. I've never been in a casino before. This was the first time I ever went into a casino. And we was there much more as spectators than partakers. I don't really know how to play the games inside a casino, and there was a minimum bet of 100 Hong Kong dollars. Maybe 1 Hong Kong dollars doesn't seem like a lot to many people, but to me, to bet on a game that I don't really know the rules for, it didn't seem like a great idea. So we just kind of like more observed the location just to go inside it, to be in a casino for once in our lives. We didn't need to spend any money to enter, but the casino was very glamorous, and I was quite surprised at just how computerized it all is. Most of the games inside were ready to play on a computer, which kind of feels to me that it can be a little bit more tricky to win. Like, surely you can design a computer program to not win all the time. Now, there were some tables where they actually did have cards, like if the people were playing blackjack and roulette. It still had people there, of course. But basically, casinos aren't the reason why I wanted to come here. And I would actually say the casinos are the worst part of Macau. Obviously, if you're very into gambling, then it's going to be the best part of Macau. And I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic time here. The Strip is a beautiful place to visit. So many lights, so very gorgeous when it's lit up at night. My whole point of actually Macau deserves a little bit more time and respect from people who enjoy traveling, is because the casinos are really the worst part here. There is so much history to learn here. The Macau, all around Macau is very beautiful. The buildings are painted beautifully. There's some fantastic artwork. There's a lot of history. And I would definitely say it's worth visiting here, even if you don't like casinos, and just basically avoid the Strip. And that's very easy to do. We stayed here for one full day. And we kind of regret that we didn't spend like 2 full days here. So we could spend 1 day visiting the northern island and 1 day visiting the southern island, as both islands have so many magnificent things to do. And we feel like we've missed out on seeing some fantastic views, seeing some fantastic history, seeing some very well designed ancient buildings, or at least old buildings anyway. And I had spent 1 day on each island, as we definitely feel like we've missed out on some opportunities which we may not get again, because maybe Macau isn't the place you would necessarily come back to. Even though maybe it deserves it, most likely isn't, as there's so many places to visit in the world. So I guess in hindsight, if we had the chance to plan this trip again, we would spend 1 day on each island and just avoid the Strip, as there were beaches down in the south, there was more temples to visit, and there were more historical sites to visit. Okay, getting into the food. Again, all my research here pointed to, obviously, Macau is a former Portuguese colony. Obviously, the influence of Portugal is very heavy here in Macau for obvious reasons. So a lot of the research I'd done about local cuisine here had sort of like this fusion between Portuguese and other cuisine. But when we got here and we started speaking to the local waitresses and people in the hotels, it seems like it was actually, for the locals, they're more influenced by Guangdong style. So everything I thought I wanted to try here wasn't actually here. Now, we did get some of the famous snacks that are here, sort of the beef and pork jerky. And surprisingly, they give away so many free samples, we didn't actually end up buying one. Felt a little guilty about it, but we didn't actually end up buying one, as the free samples were enough for us to get full. And of course, Macau is definitely famous for egg tarts, very similar to Hong Kong in this way, but maybe a little bit more famous here. So that's definitely worth trying, and it's a very delicious dessert you can maybe get after dinner. And the pork chop bun is everywhere. The pork chop bun we had was very delicious, however, it was a little bit dry. I felt like it could have had a little bit more butter in there or some sort of sauce on it, and there was no sort of like vegetables on top. It's just literally a bun, maybe a little bit of butter or something on it, and the pork chop itself. It was fine, it was tasty enough, but it was a little bit dry. Now, of course, I wasn't able to finish my recording in Macau because we always try to fit in as much stuff and do as many things as we can in the short amount of time that we have to travel. So I ran out of time filming in front of the amazing Grand Lisbon Hotel, not the Grand Gibson Hotel. And the last part about food that I wanted to talk about is the almond cakes or almond biscuits that seem to be quite popular in Macau. Now, these ones we did actually manage to buy. We did get lots of free samples of these as well. However, this time we bought a box. Bought a box of a pack, and it's got small little almond biscuits inside. And these are very, very yummy. A little bit sweet, a little bit crumbly, but very delicious. If we can just see, these ones are small. You can obviously get them in lots of different sizes, but they are very, very yummy indeed. We still have quite a few left because I didn't want to eat them all before I managed to film it. So they'll probably be gone within the next a few hours or day. Getting into Macau was super easy. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but there are several ways you can come across. There is, of course, an airport. There are several ports that you can come in via boat. And there are a couple of bridges as well going across from Hong Kong and Shenzhen, I believe. Now, we crossed via boat. Very easy ride. It was a 1-hour journey from Hong Kong to Macau. And getting through the border was no problem with my UK passport. But I covered all of this in my Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Macau crossing borders video. So if you haven't seen that and you want to know more about how to cross the borders, then check that video out as well. Maybe one of the most important things for any trip is, of course, money. And Macau has its own currency, of course. So the local currency is called pataka, I believe is the pronunciation. So you can get 1 pataka, 2 pataka, 20 patakas. They also have the Macau avos. Maybe my pronunciation isn't exactly correct, but it's the avos and the pataka. Now, 10 avos is 1 pataka, which makes a very easy calculation. This is 1 pataka, this is 1 avos, so 10 of these will make pataka. Now, when we was there, some people don't really bother getting the Macau currency, as they just want to spend their Hong Kong dollars as they've come over from Hong Kong. Now, we did find in a few places, like there was a bus that we took that said he didn't want any Hong Kong dollars, but that was just one bus driver. Maybe on other buses you can. But there was restaurants that said they would take Hong Kong dollars, and there were shops as well that said they would take Hong Kong dollars. But then there were other smaller, maybe more local shops that only wanted the Macau's own currency. So just be aware of this when you're coming to Macau. And also in the casino, you can only gamble in Hong Kong dollars, which I found a little strange. However, in the casinos, they do have a currency exchange place right there in the casino. So you can just go up to the place where you would buy the tokens. You can say, I need to exchange however many patakas into Hong Kong dollars, and they will do that there for you. And then you would then buy the chips in Hong Kong dollars. So it's a little bit of a process, but that's how it's done. However, we did only go into one casino. Maybe other casinos are different. Maybe the smaller, more local casinos don't do that. So this is just like on the strip where we went into one of the casinos. Now we came to Macau during Chinese New Year, so one of the busiest times to arrive, and obviously hotel prices during peak time is very expensive. So we can't exactly get amazing deals on where it is we want to stay. Now, the cheapest place we could find that we wanted to stay in was the Holiday Inn, and we didn't think it was that expensive considering it was Chinese New Year. As we stayed in the northern part of Macau, which is cheaper to stay in as well, other than staying in the south. However, it still was very expensive. Now, they have obviously some of the greatest 5-star hotel experiences, I'm sure, on the strip. And these places are obviously going to cost ridiculous amounts of money, probably even during non-peak time. However, during peak time, it's just not even worth thinking about if you're just a regular traveler. And mostly, you're going to be looking at the cheaper places. And even during Chinese New Year, there were some incredibly cheap places. However, we didn't really want to stay in those. They was a little bit out of the way where we wanted to be. And also we just wanted something a little bit more comfortable. And these are going to be your most basic hotels. During non-peak time, they could be a lot cheaper. One good thing about staying in the northern part and in Holiday Inn is obviously we had the amazing view of the Grand Lisbon, which was definitely a benefit for us as we would wake up in the morning, open the window, open the curtain, and what a view. But it doesn't really matter too much where you stay, as Macau is very easy to get around. They do have a bus system, a metro system, or a metro line. They do have lots of taxis, and walking is always probably an option you could easily take. So the bus system is great. We took a bus across the bridge from the Northern Island to the Southern Island, and there's a lot of buses running. However, at night, when we was leaving the strip to go back to our hotel, the buses were very full. So we did have to wait for at least 2 buses to go by until we could get on one. So make sure you have the correct money, as the buses also didn't want to take notes, or they didn't give change. So there was a family there who didn't quite have the correct change, and we helped them out as we had plenty of change on us. So always make sure you've got the correct change, or you're just willing to pay like double for the bus. There's one metro line that I could see, and it was nowhere near where we were staying, so that it wasn't really convenient for us to take. This probably isn't really going to be an option unless you're staying very close to it. It does take you across the river that's separating the 2 islands. Other than that, taxis will probably be one of the most likely ways you will be getting around if you're not taking the bus. And there are taxis everywhere. They're not going to be too difficult to find. The prices aren't really that much, as driving around Macau can be very quick, and walking is a fantastic option. Macau's not that big, so everything is kind of close by, so you can just walk from one location to another, and it could take about 20 minutes. The only time you really need transportation is probably crossing the islands. Other than that, you could get a lot of walking in. It's just if you don't want to walk, then a bus or a taxi is going to be the most likely options for you, as the metro doesn't really exist. But we had a fantastic time here in Macau. I highly recommend it as not just a place to tick off the bucket list, or just another place to tick off the list to increase the number of locations you've been to, that it actually is a great place, and I think you're going to have a great time here. But anyway, as we say in China, bye-bye. Yeah, for the